There's never a time that like having more money doesn't require a conversation about it and understanding it better. And I want to set you up real quick in your listening that even if you're a coach, understanding this process is helpful personally. Like this is a process and a thing that you'd want to know how to do personally, because having flexibility when it comes to money gives you power, gives you additional impact that you can have in your business and your personal life. And when you give that gift to your client, then they have the freedom to exercise on like making decisions to a greater capacity. And so we're going to go through like how to help clients find money, and this would also directly apply to you. So the first thing, and Sean talked about this a little bit also, but the first thing that you want to do before you move into like, hey, let's have a money conversation, is you want to make sure that your client's a yes. You want to make sure that like this is something they want to do. So before you set up a time to talk about money, we must first make sure that they are a yes. And this is speaking to the client. If your client has given you a money excuse, like, yeah, I do this, but I don't have the money, I don't have, the financing or the, whatever variation of that, then you want to ask if money wasn't an object. You want to like remove like, okay, if that didn't exist, would you say you're a yes or a no around wanting to do this? Like, tell me, if money wasn't the problem, would you want to do this or not? And if they're a yes, then you can move to the next steps. But then if they're a no, then it's like, why were we working with this person anyways? No is really a powerful stance. It's just sometimes we have to ask for it in a really bold way, because it's like the money excuse really wasn't the excuse. They just really were a no, or they didn't see the value, or we didn't do a good enough job giving or portraying the value of what we had. And then we can go back and talk about value, right? But if they're a yes, then we can move to the next step. But I wouldn't do any money conversations until you know that. Then once they're a yes, it's so important to establish their why again. So once a yes is established, you can then move to the why. Now you've already gotten a why. If you've done your job before you've even had this conversation at the beginning of an intro, you already know their why. This is a continual probe that you're going to be doing through the sales process. This is very important, as the next step is often an area people don't like others looking at. So this is like super important, because finances, I mean, how many of you guys get really excited when it's like, hey, let's take a deep look at my money situation. Let's start plugging in and like diving into my taxes, or start talking about insurance. Like no one, it's just like finger to mouth, right? No one's really excited about doing a deep dive into their finances. And so that's why establishing their why is so crucial, because it's like, if I don't have a why behind looking in and doing a deep dive in my finances, I'm probably not going to do it. We're going to set the appointment and then I'm not going to show up. We're going to set up this thing and then I'm going to kind of lollygag around doing it, because my why is not thick enough to propel me through this kind of painful process. So make sure you have them restate their why and then ask for the meeting. So setting up the meeting. Now that you are setting up the meeting, you will want to have them prepared, and you'll want to use all the skills and tactics you've learned over this time with us on how to set the meeting, right? Ask them to come with the following. So you're going to want to prep them to have some stuff ready for the meeting. You're going to want to know about their credit cards, remaining balance, and the total card amount. So you want to know how much is on the card, right? And how much have they spent on it? And what's like that remaining balance? So they're going to come back with like 2 data pieces. The total amount, like I've got a $15,000 card and I've only got $10,000 on it. Great. What other cards do you have? And you just want to have them come with a list of all of those cards. And then you want them also to come, and this isn't something they have to do a huge dive on, because you'll help them with it when you meet with them. But you're like, also, I want you to think about like any assets you have, cars, boats, jewelries, your house, and just come with anything that you know you have equity in. Like, it's like, yeah, even if you have a loan, maybe you only have 6 months left on your car loan and there's a ton of equity in the vehicle. Like, just be open to that, be considering it, and let's go through that in the future. All right, now it's the meeting. So now there you are. You've done all the stuff. They're a yes. They've gone through their why. They came prepared for the meeting. And during the meeting, you will guide them through this process of finding funds. The areas you're going to cover are credit cards, assets, friends and family. And I want to, before we go too much further in this, I want to talk to you about one of the common mistakes that happens right in this area. And I got a good idea Wednesday what a lot of you are doing. And one of the things that concerns me is a lot of us are working with like credit repair places or financing guys, and we're sending our clients to these individuals too soon. And then they're finding credit cards for them, and then they're coming back and 3 weeks, 2 weeks later, finally ready to buy. Or same candidate, we send them over, but because of time and distance, now they're not as excited anymore. Maybe they get the credit card, but then they don't pay for it. Or maybe they just don't finish the whole process because of the time in between us talking to them and their interest level. So the reason I'm doing this is there's nothing you can do, or there's nothing you can't do around getting them a credit card that handing them over to this third-party company or this other place that's going to increase your time, decrease the likelihood of them signing up, just creates a barrier to entry. So I'm giving you the tools to go through on how much you can do on your level before you hand them over to someone like that will likely get the same results, or they'll decline them, right? They'll say, well, we tried, we just couldn't get them anything. And it's like, well, yeah, I knew that. So don't hand these people over if you know there's something you can do around it. That's the point I'm trying to drive home right now. If they have money on credit cards, but it declines, here's some things that you also want to know about. And this is also for Sean and Trent, as they're the ones often running these cards, but you'll want to know too, so that you know how to work with them or prep them later down the road. But a lot of reasons cards decline is they're like international charges, and you haven't opened up the card for international charges. It might have gotten triggered for fraud prevention, like the amount was too large or something like that. It might be above the balance, so they might not have that much money on the card. A lot of times it can be an AVS mismatch or a zip code, the wrong zip code or the wrong expiration date. They might be missing payments on their card, so they might have missed a payment on their card, and so the card is like, no, we're not letting you like borrow more money. Or the card might be expired and they just need to get the new card or ask for a new card. And also credit report took a hit. So they might have been doing something where their credit took a hit and the card company's getting a little worried, and they might have pulled back some of the credit. So ways to solve this, and Sean and Trent are very well equipped on how to work with cards this way, but something just so you're aware and you know how to assist as well is have them call, like anytime a card declines and you know there's money on them, always call the card immediately. Don't wait, don't have them call and then meet back with them later. Like do it and do it now. Often you can be in the background while they're making the call, but you can be coaching this call with the person on the phone. But you just want to flip over the card, look at the card on the number on the back of the card, call that number, and within minutes, often you'll have this resolved. If they will not call with you, commit them to call and then follow up with a short period of time. And when I say short, I mean within like 30 minutes, not like the next day. This will solve every problem that was on the previous list, is calling the card. Order to cards. So let me give you, and I hope, especially CODs, I hope you're writing this down, because I'm not sending this PowerPoint to you guys later. But this is order around this is so crucial. Now, I'm not saying you can't not follow the order and have some success, but if you follow this order around how to get cards, increase cards, approve new cards, the order in which you do it is crucial. Because if you go out of order, the likelihood of getting more or a higher amount does start to decrease. So there is an order to this, and you want to know this. And it's not hard. This is so easy stuff, guys. I'm telling you, by the time we get done off this training, you're going to know some clients in the back of your mind are like, oh my gosh, I just need to have this meeting and we'll be able to find the money. So the first is increasing existing cards. So let's say they've got, most Americans have a couple credit cards. And what you want to do is identify the cards they already have and get other cards raised to match the highest card limit. So that's why we asked for all those balances, is they're going to come with that information. You're going to go, oh, you got a card that's got 10 grand on it, but these other cards only have like 2. So what you're going to do first is you're going to have them call with you the cards that aren't the highest level. So you're going to have them call these $2,000, $3,000 card limits. You're going to call them up and you're going to ask the cards to raise it to match the highest credit limit. Second to this, you're going to call cards and ask for a limit increase because you want to use the card more. So you want to have a good story also, because they will ask why. Why do you need the card increase? And it's like, well, I really like this card and I have this other card and I really just want to be using this card more. I don't want to be using this card. I like this card better. It has the points that I like or whatever. But you want to give them a story of why, and it's not a balance transfer, by the way. It's like, I want to be using this card more. And then you want to try to increase the highest card last. So the card that was $10,000, you'll actually have that call last. So you go through all the other cards, get increases. By the way, guys, most of those increases will happen over the phone within minutes. So like 5 minutes on a call with your card, you will often get an increase. If you ask for a certain amount, they will at least approve the amount that they feel they're comfortable with. So even if you ask for a higher amount than the one that they want, they'll often increase it, even if it's not all the way up to the limit that you wanted. And then when you're done, you go to the $10,000 card or the highest card that you had, and then you ask a request for that. It's like, I've been using this card and I feel like it's time for an increase. I feel like it's time for me to get an increase on this card. And oftentimes, if they have a good history and they're making payments, they'll increase the card. And then don't do this before, apply for new cards. So you want to apply for cards after you've already worked the cards they have. And I will tell you that most places that you send your guys to won't do this. They're not going to try to work the cards they have first, because their agreement is to find new credit. And then when they get new credit, they get paid on how much they found them. So they're not going to do that on the existing cards because it's not new credit. But they're going to immediately go to new cards, which one is going to start dinging their credit. They may not get accepted for new cards, and then we end up missing, because we've hit their credit first, we're going to miss all the credit limit increases we could have had that you simply could have directed over, just a simple meeting, guys. A meeting for an hour with your client, you'll be able to go through all of this. So you're going to apply for new cards, and then once you have the cards, you're going to call to raise and match them to the highest limits. So it's like, and this is just a game to get you to the point to where you want to be. This doesn't mean that you have to do this on all the cards if you have the amount that you need. But once you get new cards, so you've gone through your cards, you've raised them up as much as you can, and you got the new cards, they're coming in, then you're going to take those cards and you're going to call them, right? You don't have to use it. You're going to call them and you're going to ask to raise the limit. And you're going to do that in that order. You'll have the most success with it in that order. If you have one card with 5 grand, you can use that to get the same amount on different cards, just like we talked about. When asked why you need the extra balance, say to transfer, if it's a balance ad, if they're like advertising, like transfer your balance over to this card, then use that as your excuse. Otherwise, just say I like the points or I like the benefits. Have a good story around it. Most lenders, and this is general across the board. This is with banks. This is with mortgages. Most lenders will match what one lender has already given you. They kind of use this rule of thumb, like it's kind of a default rule, like, oh, what are the other lenders doing? Okay, well, if they're doing that, then we feel safe at least matching that. And then if they have an active card, it's important to apply for new lines of cards or new lines of credit first, then ask for a bump on the existing. Sorry, this is reversed. Ask for the ones on existing, then get the new credit cards, then ask for an increase on those credit lines. When asking for an increase, don't overshoot. That's another thing. And they're like, well, how much do you want? Don't say $100,000. Just like get enough that pushes you over that edge. Get enough that like if all you need is 5 grand extra for this client to get into a program, then don't ask for 15, ask for 5. Because they'll most likely match the 5, and if they can't, then they'll give you something in between. Yeah, try to get what you need, nothing more. So here's where I like to go to apply for credit cards. It's called creditcards.com. And let me just show you a really quick example of what this site looks like so you guys know what you're dealing with. But the nice thing about creditcards.com is you can pick based on, and this is good information just for anyone. Like I use this site. I picked our company's card based on this because I wanted the card that gave me the most back in cash. So I got a double points card, meaning I got 2 points for every dollar spent cash back. And that's huge. And for someone with good credit, it's like, don't settle for 1 point, get 2, right? But this also is a great place to apply. And even if you're someone with new credit, someone who maybe wants cash back on cards or is a travel card or doesn't have great credit, like you can do based on excellent credit, good credit, fair credit, bad credit. You can do any of these, right? So you just click on it and they're going to give you a list of the cards. They usually have sponsors on the top and then other cards going down. And you'll kind of get an idea who's hungry. Like certain cards I found that do really well are your not so popular cards, like your Discover cards will typically accept people that other people won't. They'll give limits that are higher than other cards. Capital One we found works really good. Also, we'll talk about this in a second, using a business card. So if you have an EIN or an entity and you're like unable to get more credit on your personal cards, often you can get a credit card for your entity, put in the EIN number, and they'll give you a brand new credit line because it's through this entity. So it's just really bizarre, the rules and how they like justify this stuff, but these are all options in terms of helping your client. Let's see here. Get caught up here. 2 more slides. Here we go. Okay, so many cards have much looser or are much looser around approving clients and will issue small amounts even for new clients. Again, look for cards that are up and coming, not big brand. And we talked a little bit about, there was a time Business for Blue from Amex was like one of the easiest cards to get credit on. This was years ago, like over a decade ago. Now they're not, but I could, for every entity I had, I could get a card, put my name on it, throw an EIN on it, and right out of the gate have 10 grand. And I could do that for 10 entities. And now I'd have $100,000 in credit. And that was just how it was back in the day. But it's just, every card's gonna be a little different. You'll find little tips, little tricks as you do this with your clients. And then you'll remember the cards that they got approved on easier, the ones that gave them more money. And then you can do that with your other clients. Other things you want to just kind of remember is you want to have them apply until they get the full balance. Credit card companies do lower your score. So a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to do that, it lowers my score. You want to be the expert around this. You want to be someone that can tell them what's actually going to happen. And it's like, yes, it does lower your score, but when you do it multiple times, they think you're shopping and you get what's called a shopping rate on your credit. And they only lower your score a little rather than they like ding it every single time that you're applying. Does that make sense? So the way that the credit bureaus work is they're not gonna, it's not like every time you apply it lowers your credit. If you apply and you do it within a certain window, usually it's like a 48-hour window, they're like, oh, they must be shopping for something. Maybe they're looking to get a car, maybe they're looking to buy something new, and they're just shopping for rates, and that's why their credit's getting checked a bunch. So they kind of crunch that all up, and then they only lower your score a certain amount because you're doing it within a certain period of time. Thus, the thing I wouldn't do is have them do this over a long period of time. You want to do it, and you want to do it all at once. You want them applying within a 24-hour period, knocking it all out at once. You don't want them doing over this course of the week. Otherwise, if they're like doing it a little bit here, a little bit there, obviously that's going to impact their score a lot more. Student versus self-employed or employed. These will be questions that are asked that you can help coach. Employed always looks the best. Income on most cards, this includes annual income, and it can also include those supporting you, spouse, parents, and friends. In fact, a lot of times when you look at, like, it says estimated annual income, there'll be a little question mark next to the box, and you can click on it and it opens it up. And it tells you like what you can do to define annual income. They say it's not, it can include like spousal support. If you have like child care, it can include Social Security, any type of money that's coming in. And it's also an estimate. You're estimating for the year. So this is a projection into your year's income. This isn't like, what was your W-2 last year? Or what did your tax return say you made last year? This is a projection of what you think you're going to make that year. And so you're coaching a projection, and you don't want to overshoot this. You don't want to tell someone to be like, oh, you make $250,000. Oh, well, if I tell them that will help my score. It's really bizarre. It actually doesn't. You want to keep it under 100 grand. You don't want to overshoot this thing. You don't want to, the reason you don't want to overshoot it also is if you overshoot it, they'll often, even if you're asking for a small amount, they'll ask for income verification if you give them this crazy number that doesn't make any sense. So it's like you don't want to get stuck in that approval process either when you're applying for cards. All cards want to know income, and this section is often a projection, not your last year's income. All right, so step reviews. I'm just wrapping up. So first, do a full review of the cards. 2, try to increase the existing cards. 3, apply for the new credit cards. And 4, call credit card companies to get match on available balances. Get them to match your highest card limit. Alternative money, reviewing alternative credit options. Bank credit lines, go to the bank you already bank at. It's the most common and often place you can get an approved credit line. Find out if they own a home, how much equity is in it. If they're like, well, I don't know how to do that, go on Zillow. Go to Zillow.com, type in their address. It'll tell you right there what the estimate is. Just imagine that most banks are only going to give you up to 90 to 80% of what the value says on Zillow. So it's not like they're going to give you 100% of that. But if they only owe 60%, there's some room there. Talk about other assets. Cars that are often paid off can be refinanced. RVs, boats, toys, jewelry. These are things that like have been sitting in your closet and not even used for years. Jewelry also, precious metals, things like that. And then as a last resort, you can go to family and friends. If you've tried everything, don't jump to this first, but if you've tried everything, this would be the time that you'd ask your client to start sharing what they're doing around asking their family and friends for funds. Some get it for free. Like I found some of our clients actually they've got some rich grandpa and they're like, sweet, go for it. This is my contribution to you. They get it for free. And they never thought that would ever happen. Or sometimes they get it in the form of a loan from a family member. But having the client show their demo account often helps. So you might want to coach them like, well, you want to probably show them what you're doing. If you got a demo account, you're making some money, you might want to show them that. Also, bringing that family or friend member to an intro is always an option. Now, just keep in mind that person might want to sign up themselves afterwards, but them coming just to support their family or friend member, make a decision if they want to lend them the money or give them the money, they can always show up to an intro. Then, after all of this is done, you can take them and send them to a credit repair place, but only then. I found if you took these steps, someone paid to find credit will not be able to do anything you couldn't. I've just found that like you can give it to them and then they'll likely go into credit repair. However, this is why I do it first, is so you know rather than wait for something you know how to do. And what I mean by that is sending them off to this client, sending them off to this third-party company, waiting weeks, and having to push out their indicators when really, in reality, they're not going to be able to get credit. And really, you're just looking for that person to help them with credit repair so that they can start getting their credit up. So at this point, you know they just need better credit. I mean, if you go through this step, you have the meeting, it's always less than an hour. It always provides value to the client. Once you're done with the meeting, it's like you know what you can and you can't do.